I didn't record from the camera or from a mic, so that's cool. So the first half of Invincible Season 2 just ended about a week ago from me recording this, and even though we only got 4 episodes, that cliffhanger and closing sequence with Omni-Man was just incredible. I cannot wait for the next half of the season to drop in January. But one of the reasons that I loved that final episode so much was the execution of the character development within. The last time we saw Omni-Man, he was killing our heroes and on a war path to destroy Earth. Okay, well I guess actually the last time we saw Omni-Man was him bashing in Mortal Kombat characters' faces, but you get my point. Nolan became just as despicable as he could in that ending part of the first season. I mean, he nearly beat his own son to death and advocated for either the servitude or destruction of all humans. However, in a single episode, the show was able to completely reverse course on all that negative characterization that Nolan showed, and somehow turned him into a guy that we could pretty much root for. And of course, this was done through excellent, well-crafted, character-driven writing, but the vast majority of Omni-Man's transformation was actually only possible due to world building. Now, I know that sounds weird because basically world building is really only associated with big fantasies and sci-fi. Moreover, world building really isn't talked about when it comes to plotting and character. But make no mistake, the mid-season finale and the character journeys within would not have been possible without some pretty hefty world building. What I want to do today is show you writers out there, and maybe you fans too, how smart, deliberate world building choices actually led to character development for both Nolan and Mark. And in the best case scenario, you'll be able to use these fundamentals in your own writing as well. Luckily, I know a little bit about world building myself. I'm a script and novel editor, as well as the author of 6 fantasy novels, and I've written a 300,000 word compendium on fantasy world building myself, so you can take this stuff to the bank. Now, for world building, there is a core concept surrounding it that I think will greatly help anyone writing fiction. It's kind of like the fundamental rule. World building should always be in service to the narrative. That's it. That's its only function. Sure, world building can accomplish escapism and allegory and magic system formation, but all those things are merely byproducts of the world building pushing forward the narrative and the conflict. And by looking at world building as a tool, creating and executing plot decisions becomes a whole lot easier. Let's take Omni-Man's situation for example. The writers understood that they had a pretty big task in front of them. Their goal in the first part of season 2 was to not only redeem Omni-Man in the eyes of Mark, but also in the eyes of the audience. To do this, they first had to understand what made Mark and the audience dislike Omni-Man in the first place. Now obviously the whole wanting to conquer Earth thing was kind of at the top of the list, but high-level writing requires more specificity than that. What specific character actions made Nolan so despicable? Only by understanding this can we decide what tasks need to happen to make Nolan redeemed. Well, there are plenty of stuff that Nolan did.
But I'm loyal to Viltrum, not this pathetic excuse for a civilization.
Nolan not only wanted to conquer Earth, he believed that humans were lesser, inferior. Nolan believed that humans' short lifespans made them basically inconsequential in the grand scheme of things.
Listen to what I'm saying. You know in your heart I'm right.
Right? About how pathetic and pointless humanity is? Is Mom's life worthless?
In the grand scheme of things, yes.
Nolan killed the protectors of Earth. Nolan considered his own wife to be akin to an animal.
I do love your mother, but she's more like a pet to me.
Nolan was blindly loyal to the Viltrumite Empire despite the terrors they made him do.
And everything you know will be gone! What will you have after 500 years?
And maybe worst of all, Nolan nearly killed his own son and joked that he'll just have to make another one.
I can always start again. Make another kid.
While there certainly might be more, I'm not saying they're not, these are the main actions that Nolan took that completely destroyed his relationship with both Mark and the audience. By creating this list, what we are actually doing is seeing exactly how Nolan must be characterized going forward in order to be seen as redeemed. But this, of course, is easier said than done. The difficulty of Omni-Man's situation is that he just can't come back to Earth and ask for forgiveness.
I know this comes as a surprise.
Oh shit, I'm surprised. You're married to Mom.
I can't go back to Earth, Mark. Not ever. The life I had there is over.
Neither Mark, nor Debbie, nor anyone else who knew what he did would believe an apology from him. Besides, an apology would simply be telling his remorse and positive transformation. The best case scenario is to show it through actions. This is what makes good stories, good conflicts, good narratives. But again, this is still difficult. From just a logical narrative perspective, Omni-Man can't go back to Earth and do good deeds. He would never be accepted back. So from an analytical writing perspective, this really only leaves the writers one choice. Omni-Man must show his redemption through deeds somewhere other than Earth. That's simple enough on paper. The world building so far already confirmed that there are a vast number of advanced planets in the universe. But which one? From a narrative perspective, which one would be best for Omni-Man? See, this is where intentional, structured world building comes in. Basing a story in modern-day Earth means you're generally constrained to the realism of Earth's laws, its physics, its cultures, etc. But basing a story in a world of your own creation means it can be tailor-made to suit each and every one of your narrative needs. And Omni-Man's narrative needs, in order to be redeemed in the eyes of Mark and the audience, would be to correct all his mistakes through a second chance somewhere else. Remember, we have a list of his mistakes. Since going back to Earth was off the table, the writers would need to construct a planet through world building that catered to the redemption of those mistakes. Omni-Man needed to go to a planet where the population was fragile and weak compared to him, but he still accepted them anyway. He needed to go to a planet where they lived shorter lives than him, but he still saw their value anyway. Omni-Man needed to go to a planet where he could be their protector instead of their destroyer. Omni-Man needed to go to a planet where he wouldn't view the people as animals or pets. And Omni-Man needed to go to a planet that tested and stood in opposition to his loyalty to Viltrum. This ingredient list of elements is what world building is truly about, because while they're all specific to the character development of Nolan, they set the baseline for whatever setting is being constructed. You as a writer must create a society that appears organic and lived in and historic for your audience, but what it's really there for is to provide context and fuel for your narrative. And this is exactly how we got the Thraxans. The Thraxan planet is everything that was needed to redeem Omni-Man, but the phenomenal part about it was that it was built by the writers to dramatize Nolan's redemption. Omni-Man once disowned the population of Earth because he thought they were beneath him.
You were a Viltrumite when you came to Earth, but you've changed. You were happy here.
Sure, I was happy for a time, but I'm loyal to Viltrum, not this pathetic excuse for a civilization.
But through intentional world building, he adopts literal bugs as his own people.
You don't get to put that on me. Not after everything you did.
What I did on Earth was unforgivable. But your brother and all these people will die without our help.
This is bullshit. You're the reason they're in danger. You signed their death warrant, not me.
And now I'm asking you to help me save them.
Omni-Man thought humans were inconsequential because of their short age and lifespan. While on Thraxan, he cares for people that only live a year.
Oh, yeah, those meteors. You know, must be a touch of dementia. We age much quicker than you humans, you know. Don't worry, the Monarch will explain all.
Omni-Man considered humans akin to animals and called his own wife a pet.
I do love your mother, but she's more like a pet to me. You don't know me. I will burn this planet down before I spend another minute living among these animals.
But on Thraxan, he takes an insect woman as his wife and seems to genuinely care about her. Omni-Man once vehemently adhered to the Viltrumite code, but on Thraxan, he breaks it by having a son with a native.
These are my people!
We have a responsibility to Viltrum.
I don't give a shit about Viltrum!
The Viltrumite rules of interbreeding are not complicated.
Rules of... Oh, Jesus.
We're only allowed to procreate with genetically similar species.
But greatest of all, the world building of the Thraxans being insect-based allowed for accelerated character growth. Nolan got to protect the planet as its undisputed leader, but not through violence as he once thought was necessary on Earth, but through peace. This is because the world building of the Thraxans makes the oldest citizen the Emperor, and since Nolan is thousands of years old, he was given power democratically.
That's why we're here. To keep them from resisting. To show them how wrong they are. How pointless it is. That they can be a part of something bigger. Or die.
So you conquered this place instead of Earth. Great.
I didn't conquer the Thraxans. They asked me to be their emperor.
Emperor, conqueror, what's the difference?
Nolan got to reveal his mistakes on Earth and be forgiven and accepted. This is because on top of aging fast, Thraxans also process emotions and feelings fast. Where a human might have taken a lifetime to forgive Nolan, the Thraxans did it in days. The Thraxans' acceptance of Nolan showed Mark that forgiveness was possible and that his dad could change.
Your father saved my life, and the lives of many others. At first, it was hard to know him. He was so hurt, so closed off after what happened on Earth.
Probably most important of all though, the Thraxans' fast aging allowed Nolan to demonstrate his redemption by allowing him to have a new family and treating them differently. Nolan threatened Mark by saying that he could start over and make a new kid. But the beautiful twist is that by actually starting a new family on another planet and defending them from Viltrumites himself, Nolan showed just how far he progressed. And remember, this all happened a few months after the season 1 finale. For Mark to be able to see his new little brother, to see his dad's transformation, the world building of the Thraxans aging was practically necessary.
It's too soon. We need more time.
Nolan?
Oh shit. Are those?
Viltrumite soldiers. Mark, get Andressa and your brother to safety.
Where?
Andressa will show you. Go, there's no time.
But all the elements, while very much weird on their own, come together in a world-building concoction that sets the groundwork for Mark and his dad to finally see eye to eye, or at least get on that path. World-building is not just some fun exercise of drawing maps and creating powers and lore and history. It can surely be all those things, but it's so much more too. World building is about utilizing your setting as a tool to further your characters within, because characters are ultimately the only thing that makes the world interesting. Does world building have flaws and limitations? Certainly. Sometimes world building is poorly used to create MacGuffins for the characters to fight over, or introduces Deus Ex Machinas that solve the conflict.
This is why we're here. Unobtainium. Because this little gray rock sells for 20 million a kilo. That's the only reason. It's what pays for the whole party. It's what pays for your science. Comprendo?
But even still, a writer's ability to use their setting to enhance and contextualize their narrative and conflict is the difference between good stories and great stories. And hopefully, you all now have a better understanding of how to do it all. Anyway, thanks for watching all the way until the end. If you like what you heard, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you really want to be a homie, support on Patreon, check out my website for my editing services and books, or join me on TikTok. As always, it was a pleasure, and I'll talk to you all again soon.